All right, I will say hello and welcome back to another episode of All About Balance. And today I am joined by the North of England's version of Genghis Khan, Mr. Steve McBriarty. How's it going, sir?
Oh, yeah, good lad. I am sound. Sound. Here we are.
Here we are,
Podcast number 2.
podcast
McBriarty
number two.
Boogaloo.
Yeah, yes, indeed, indeed. How are you, sir? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Obviously, there's a light at the end of the tunnel now when it comes to the
Yes,
whole lockdown.
it is. It is.
How's things for you, good sir?
Yes, mate. I can't really complain too much. I think. I mean, one of the things I did want to speak to you about was sort of how you expect things to be socially when lockdown ends, and whether you suspect there's going to be lasting, like everlasting changes to society.
I reckon so, man. Like, even for me, with bars and stuff being coming back open fairly soon, I've had people like invite me to these so they can book ahead and stuff. And like, it's weird because when I was answering that question, it's a bit of social anxiety sort of kicked in a little bit, and I was like, that's pretty wild. I've not had that in a while, a very very long time. So it's I think it's going to be a very strange one, especially in those first 2 to 3 months, I reckon.
Yeah, I wonder whether it's going to be longer than that. I wonder whether just the way that people interact is going to be different. I mean, I think there's a generation of people, sort of our age generation, where they they're just chomping at the bit to go and be social and interact with people and whatever. And I mean, I may not subscribe to that specifically. I'm merely talking generationally from an age perspective. But
yeah,
I kind of agree with you. I mean, I'm not really somebody that would get invited to pubs, thankfully. But if I would, I don't know. I feel like my social appetite has regressed quite vastly to either my house or when they're open gyms, right? And maybe potentially restaurants, but I don't know. I think that it just I felt I'm gonna get this point out eventually. I feel like division has really grown and skepticism of common man has really grown because you don't know, like there's this whole thing of COVID is lethal, but there's very little symptoms other than a cough and a bit of a cold that are visible, right? Like if you're out in the street, but there's that skepticism of, oh, well, this anyone could be the enemy sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I agree. And but I think a lot of that is social media as well. Like I've seen so many people over the past year, like just make a statement on Facebook or Instagram, and then if someone doesn't agree with them, it's like, well, delete me. And it's like, oh, it's like, you guys are good friends, man. Like, just come on. Let's all just learn to respect each other's opinions and, just be mates, man. Like fucking hell. But yeah, I agree. There's going to be a lot of that. There's going to be a lot of kind of like this whole, ooh, is it safe?
Do you think there's going to be a place for that sort of discourse commonly? Because I feel the point that you just made is bountiful online. And if people are regressing more and more to staying inside their homes and interacting digitally, then I feel like we're sort of I mean, this is a pessimistic option, obviously, but I feel like we're doomed to this divisive lack of discourse. Do you feel there's a route to get back to regular discourse?
I think I think there is, and I think what's going to end up happening is a lot of people are going to start to realize, well, this is kind of counterintuitive, well, counter to what I was saying previously, but I think when people start to, have more social interaction in real life, they're going to end up, realizing that the social media aspect of it is it's not very it's inherently not very personal. Do you know what I mean? Even though obviously a lot of people try and portray their outlooks, if you will, on social media and stuff. But like things like Twitter, for example, like whenever I open Twitter, I immediately get this feeling of just dread because it's just everyone arguing all the time. Like there never is seems to be much positivity that I see on there. Of course, that's my experience with it. Like I've unfollowed a bunch of people and stuff, but that's purely because they pollute like the timeline that I see on there with a lot of negativity. Like for me, it's like I post frequently like pictures of cats, videos of otters, and just
Absolutely.
cute things. I like to put positivity out there because it's like, that will breed positivity somewhere down the line, and it's a shame when you see a lot of people who just put nothing but, political and religious opinions and, whatever is the flavor of the month to sort of discuss out there. And they're quite usually very hot takes as well. But to round off my point is I feel like people are going to end up seeing the value more so of these personal interactions than they will of seeing the interactions on social media. And I feel like you're going to get people who are going to start to use it less. And hopefully, that breeds that less divisiveness, and people can start to, love one another, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, that I'm an age-old pessimist. So my only counter to that would be that people have been enraptured by social media for a long time prior to the lockdown. The lockdown,
Agreed.
as for me, has exacerbated that. And I think what you're saying is bang on, that people, the topics of religion and political discourse and all of this stuff, they're not conversations, one, that you can have where there's a character limit, right? Two, that you can have easily where you can't hear the inflection and the tone and the context of what somebody is saying. And
Absolutely.
to do that over text is obviously very difficult, but they're not conversations you can have in a day, right? These are conversations that take weeks and months and mounds of research and people way smarter than I. So when I look out on the vast array of social media conversations, I think the point that you made was actually really pivotal. What you said is people arguing, not people talking, not people debating, but people arguing, right? And excuse me, the sort of thing that word is laced with is emotion. Whereas a lot of these conversations, a lot of these topics, they're so nuanced that you have to detach yourself from emotion. However, my fear from watching social media evolve is that I just fear that things are going to be so baked in, right? The use of social media is going to be so baked in. Like I had a conversation with Sam Townend the other day, right? And this is for the podcast. It will be out by the time this episode is released. And he was saying like he can't wait to go back to a club and do a DJ set because people have been desperate for these sorts of things. And my fear for that is people are going to use that as a massive social media bargaining tool. The whole night will be spent on an Instagram story or an Instagram IGTV or, a Facebook update or whatever about how amazing it was to get back out there, when actually the emotions of that event will be lost because you weren't present, right?
See, this is an interesting one for me, right? Because as a photographer and stuff like that, I tend to look at it through the lens of like, they're just trying to capture the history for themselves, and those memories. And like, I would hope that they wouldn't, go be too overzealous of it, and they would enjoy and live in the moment, if you will, as the point is what you're saying. But yeah, I tend to disagree with that outlook. But oh look, we just disagreed on something, which is absolutely fine.
Yes,
like,
sir.
and this is what I think people need to realize is like, you can be really good mates with people and have vastly different political views, religious views, and just disagree on stuff. No one has to get like upset with each other over it. And as more to what you're saying previously, is on social media, it's very hard to determine someone's intent and inflection and mood and emotion in what they're saying. But the one thing that is a shame is when you see a lot of people posting things for a particular agenda and like deliberately leaving out information and stuff like that, because it's like you're stopping people from forming their own opinions, like. But then again, some people will just read a headline and then already had their mind made up on something. But
I just want to lean into that disagreement a little bit more, because I actually think your specific opinion as a photographer is really valid. Just to clarify my point, like I feel like you use the word overzealous, and I think that's a really good one, because to capture the memories, there must be memories there to be captured. And if you're just entirely living that evening through an Instagram story, I wouldn't be confident that there would be tangible memories there for you to capture. However, if you'd gone and you'd spent 45 minutes on a dance floor and you'd had a couple of drinks and you were actually having the time of your life after being locked down for nearly 2 years, and there's great tunes going on, and it's actually a great night, and you want to then document that, I think that's entirely fine, right? And actually probably to be encouraged. The last conversation we had on the podcast, I think you really hammered home the importance of photographs that I personally didn't have prior to that conversation. But I feel like there's a limit, and there's a limit to everything, right? But I feel like there is a limit. And that's why I think club photographers are invaluable in those settings. It's just like, don't worry about Instagram. There'll be somebody there that will capture these moments.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Focus on making the moments for them to capture.
Absolutely.
And
I just having a good time, of course.
Yes, yes, exactly. I mean, you'd expect the camera person not to capture the poor moments, but
there has been some phenomenal ones though, like that meme of the dude whispering into the girl's ear, and she's just got this 1,000-yard stare of just get away from me. Like,
yes,
that is absolutely terrific.
And I'd like to sort of lean into the photography a little bit more. I mean, obviously,
absolutely,
your profession is a combat sports photographer, and it's been difficult for you to photograph combat sports when there hasn't been any. I mean, it's true, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, partially because there is none.
Yes. How do you? Is there such a thing as shutter rust? Or are you the Dominic Cruz of photography, in that you don't believe that exists? How do you expect to get back into combat sports photography?
I am the Dominic Cruz of photography. No, I do suspect it might be pretty rough the first couple of shoots. It might be pretty rough, man. But the thing is, I personally think as long as you're enthusiastic, you're excited, and you really want to put everything into getting good shots, I think you can't go wrong, man. You can't go wrong. I'm just, again, really excited for everyone to come back. I'm excited to go and shoot some MMA. Very excited to go and shoot some jiu-jitsu. And just also be in a gym with people and just take photos of what's going on, man. Like, I'm really, really excited for all of that.
So I think there's a few points that stand out to me. The first is you mentioning passion and excitement and enthusiasm, right? And I think that proliferates across all fields and in all boards of work. If you turn up and you're enthusiastic and you're passionate, the likelihood is that things will work out more favorably than for somebody that doesn't have those traits or those emotional attributes. What is there something that is specifically exciting to you about going back to a gym, specifically a gym? And let's use the scramble as an example. Is there something specifically exciting or romantic or beautiful that you're looking forward to capturing?
The cool thing about that is capturing the progression of what's going on around you, in terms of one person might be a day one white belt, and then they might hit their first sub a couple months down the line, and you've got that timeline of events that lead up to that moment. Or like, it might be someone who gets promoted, and you get to be there to capture that moment for them, which is obviously going to be a huge moment for them in their jiu-jitsu sort of journey and stuff. And there's a lot of things like that which are in my opinion, the most exciting thing about gym photography. Like, of course, it's really cool when you hit like a when someone hits a crazy sub and you can get a really arty photo of it. Like it's cool, man. Like I've got a photo of Danny Missing hitting a triangle, and I literally have, and I love the composition of that shot, and it was from an early bird session like 2.5 years ago now, and I literally have that on my like collage of like inspiration for my photos. It's really really huge. Like stuff like that is cool, but I like to capture like the individual progression of people within the gym.
I feel like one of the things that would be exciting to me is that first session back where people are reunited with each other.
Absolutely, that's going to be really special.
I feel
Really
like that
special.
will be incredibly special because there's going to be guys that haven't seen physically each other in well over a year, and that initial interaction, that initial hug or that initial fist bump or that initial catch up, the smiles, and I think the post training social time when everyone's sat on the mat after that
endorphins surging.
Yeah, endorphins surging, and they're reminded of the magic and the tragedy of jiu-jitsu, of training, of physical exercise, of camaraderie, of what they have missed. I'll be really interested to see what magic appears through the lens on that of those interactions. I think that'll be really beautiful.
Yeah, me too. Like, those type of moments are just it's so special, man. It's you can't even begin to overstate it.
So you touched on previously that you are gonna get back into shooting mixed martial arts. How's that going to happen?
I'm basically going to contact a few events that I've worked for in the past, Almighty FC, for example,
yeah.
and UKFC as well. I'm really excited to shoot both those types of events. The thing is as well, shooting MMA, like I've done a fair few events now, a lot with those guys, and you get to see, and like there's the regulars who fight on those events, and it's really cool to see them back again, and it's going to be, oh man, I'm getting hyped just thinking about it. Sorry, it's interrupting my speech.
No, but you can hear it. It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm excited to see all those regular faces getting in there and having a scrap, and it's glorious, man.
And I think as well, you're, I wouldn't say famous, but like me watching you take photos, there are two photos that stand out to me as some of your best, right? One was Bellator. Okay. What photo am I talking about?
I'm going to guess and say it was the one where I shot through the monitor that was on the crane. And as I forget the fighter's name now, that's really bad for me. Venom Page, yep.
Yeah.
When he's like, was that one where he was landing the overhand?
Yes.
That was it, yeah.
So that was that's the first one. And the second one is when B-Tech Raptor himself was filming the brilliant match between Tyrese Cunliffe and Shane Curtis. And the shot was you shooting again through the camera. But what you'd done so brilliantly is you'd actually captured the moment that Shane was throwing his triangle up, right? And was sort of trying to solidify that. And Riley was right there in a brilliant angle to get his own footage. So what you'd encapsulated there is like 3 stories, right? You'd encapsulated the story of the actual match, right, and what was happening, the dynamism of the match. But what was so nice is it was slightly out of focus, and that was obviously on purpose. And what was in focus was Riley, right? And Riley was deep in this match, both technically, like watching it as a fan, watching it as a friend of Shane, but also technically in the filming. of that, trying to make sure all the angles were right and he was getting the proper footage. So there's two stories in Riley's head that are colliding. And then there's your own story of the things, you know, you could see the ref having a look. You could see the commentators in the background. You could see the judges like having a look and seeing what was happening. You know, that picture just encapsulated that moment so beautifully. And I really loved both of those. But outside of your Dutch turn, I feel like those moments are ones that you specifically are able to capture really brilliantly. It's capturing the moment, but showing people what's behind the moment, right?
Absolutely. Like, what's really funny about that photo is like after I took it, like, because obviously in those moments you've got to make like a split-second decision of like, am I going to focus on what's the closest thing, which was Riley, like doing the video, or do I focus on the action? And it's like those split-second decisions. And then after I had that shot taken, like I remember, because obviously it was over super quick. You know, I didn't have enough time to get 2 photos, and like one of each. And I was like, oh man, I've messed up there. I really thought I'd messed up, and I made the wrong choice. But it's a great shot, and it's I think it's you know, it's historical to both those guys, and I think that's super valuable to me because of that.
And you know, with respect to both of the athletes, like that's a rivalry that will continue happening for years and years to come, right?
Absolutely.
It wasn't the first match, and it's certainly not going to be the last match, right?
That will be incredible to see what goes on from there.
It will. I really enjoy it. I mean, I think they're 1-on-1. So, and both of them are continuously getting better, right? You know, both lads are really young. Both of them have got a good future. So, yeah, I'll be really excited to see how that pans out in the future. But I wanted to ask you about your decision making. In that split second, how did you decide I'm going to focus on Riley and not on the match?
So, and this is going to sound hilarious, but like the way, because I do, when in those type of moments, when you're shooting for a cage, sometimes if you use autofocus, it can get stuck between, it can like literally focus on the fence rather than the action, and then in what's like closer. So I switched to manual focus, and when I switched to manual focus, the focus was closer to Riley than it was to the action going on. So I literally just racked focus back to Riley and took the shot, because it was like that was I had the more time to do that. But I guess if I was a bit more patient, maybe I could have went ahead. But you know, these things happen, man. You just gotta roll with it when stuff like that. There's such little time that you have to make those decisions, but you know, you don't want to be paralyzed and then not get a shot, you know?
I mean, yeah, I don't really have much to add. I feel like, as having never taken a decent photo in my life, I can't envisage the frame by frames. But and I think that's something that from a combat sports perspective, you know, the GOAT, right, Esther Lynn, in my opinion, anyway, you know, she's able to determine what shot is coming and almost put herself in the right position to get the shot that she wants before it happens. And I was kind of, you know, you were in a very unique position. I mean, physically in where you were stood, right? A very unique position. And I was trying to ascertain whether there was any conscious decision making behind, okay, I feel like this is a rare shot, I'm going to take it. But what is seemingly coming across is that you just instinctively took it because you knew you had to get something. There was data there for you to capture, and the first field of focus was Riley, and that's what we took, right?
Essentially, yeah. It was like a bit further away from Riley, but it wasn't quite on the cage. Yeah. So it was just faster to rack it back to Riley. But when it comes to those kind of decision making in terms of like where you stood in position around the cage and stuff like that, like for example, at this event, we had to do it. We had set places around the cage where we could be, and you just got to take a gamble, like in those moments, and just try your best with what you got. But like at a lot of MMA events where you've got the agency to basically move around the cage and stuff like that. Just don't stand in the way of any judges because they get rustled.
Sure, yeah.
But I've never done that. Of course, I'm a good guy. I'm just saying that's what I've seen some mutterings online when people have had that happen to them, I must say.
Sure.
But yeah, you've got the chance to be able to follow the action, and when you can stay in front of the action, you tend to open up those opportunities for the photos a lot more. Whereas when you're static, you've just got to, be like, okay, let's try and make the best of this.
You mentioned offline that you wanted to talk a little bit about YouTube rabbit holes. Do you want to enlighten me on your YouTube rabbit hole journey?
I certainly do. So with obviously lockdown, I imagine I'm not the only person who has just watched copious amounts of YouTube and fell into those rabbit holes that seem to go on forever, really.
Yes.
But I've got some mad stuff to talk to you about. So first of all, right, there was this a channel which is, it's like kind of like National Geographic, but the video was about Komodo dragons.
Okay.
Right, and oh man, like they are terrifying creatures. They are huge, right? And if I was to say to you, right, how far do you reckon a Komodo dragon can smell blood? What would you take a guess at? Bear in mind, obviously, there's no.
How big is a Komodo dragon, roughly? How many kilos? Or like how long?
And let me have a quick gander.
Jamie, pull that shit up.
Yeah, right. So, oh my god, this. An average Komodo dragon is between 79 and 91 kg as an adult.
Wow.
2.6 meters in length for a male and 2.3 for a female.
All right, so I'm going to say they can smell blood. 5 miles.
Do you know what it is? You nearly nailed that, dude. You nearly got it like all in one. 5.9 miles.
Do you know what? My first instinct was to say 6 miles, right? And I was like, 6 miles is an outrageous length. So I was like, I'll dumb it down slightly. It's 5.9 miles. Fuck me.
So 9.5 kilometers. It's Jesus. Absolutely insane, right? And yeah, so I ended up watching like this video on Komodo dragons, and there's an actual island called Komodo Island.
Oh no.
Yeah, where there's just loads of them. And oh man, yeah, there's basically there's loads of horror stories about these guys going out to like forage and then like they'll fall out of a tree.
Why?
Yeah, I know. And they'll fall out of a tree and they'll like graze themselves or cut themselves. And then that's it. Just Komodos fucking swarming in. And they're vicious, super vicious. But
it's not for me.
Oh mate, there was a video that went on Twitter around the other day as well of a Komodo dragon. I don't know where this was, but it's just in a shop. It's in like a supermarket shop and just starts crawling up one of the sides of the next to where like there's potato chips and stuff. It's like,
oh, that's amazing. He's like, just get this Doritos.
Yeah, proper man. Honestly, terrifying. But like, because I was on this, like the next video that I seen, and it was because I'm guessing because the algorithm was feeding like animals and stuff, was dog long jump competitions.
Oh God.
Right. How mad is that? Right. So there's a dog called Spitfire.
Great.
That's got and he's got the world record for height.
Oh God.
For jump height, I believe, but for distance, he's 100% got that one. And how the format for like this dog long jump thing is like they basically take a run and jump off like a dock into a pool.
Okay, so they measure the splash.
Yeah, but also there's like a set distance, and there'll be like it looks like almost like a sponge or like a dog toy, and they've got to catch that.
Okay.
For it to be a legit jump, and this dog jumped 30 foot
What?
Yep. Absolute madness, right?
30 foot.
Yep. In length, of course. And then in height, it was 8 foot. An 8-foot vertical leap. This whippet called Spitfire just going absolutely ham through the air.
Right, hold on. 30 foot, yeah?
Yeah.
6, 12, 18, 24. Fuck me. That is more than 5 times my height.
Yeah, put it this way, man. The video looks hilarious because it's just this dog fully extended in the air, like just soaring. It honestly looks like it's
like
flying.
8 seconds.
Yeah, and what's funny is like on the video I seen as well, it was like people were comparing this dog to like Michael Jordan of dog jumping and stuff like this, which is absolutely hilarious, of course.
Mate, that dog is a genetic freak.
He is an Spitfire. What an absolute lad. But you know, of course, from there we got things like bullfighting and stuff like that. But then I ended up on I think I might have spoke to you about this one before, but this one keeps coming up, and it's a tag team fighting setup called Thermopylae.
Okay, you've not talked to me about this, but go on.
Oh man, so this is wild. Like, it's imagine a boxing ring but half the width, so it's like a narrow corridor.
It's like a fencing type deal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way of putting it, in fact, right? And you've got teams of 4.
Oh God.
It's kickboxing rules. You can't elbow and stuff like that.
Can you clinch and take down, like sweeps and stuff?
Yes.
Oh Lord, this is going to get brutal quickly.
But yeah, so there's it's a long video, of course, but I implore everyone who's a fan of kickboxing or whatever, striking in general, I implore you to go and watch this. There's a lad in this. It's Russian, of course, you know, classic.
Yeah, of course it is.
And there's this guy called Nikolai Nikitenko, right? This guy is an absolute savage. So I'm not going to spoil it, right? But he ends up knocking out 3 members of the opposing team. And of course, they're all different weights, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a weight limit to it, kind of like how, you know, Quintet have it. He knocks out 3 of these guys before deciding, because you can decide, if you win a fight, you can decide, okay, I'm going to stay on for the next round and just try and do some damage. And then obviously decision happens or you get knocked out. He opts, after he knocks the 3rd guy out, he opts to sit out, and he's like, right, cool. There's 3 of our lads on my team. They'll be all right. Okay. But there's a bizarre twist of fate that happens in this fight, right? And I'm not going to ruin it, but I'm just going to say, look up Thermopylae or Nikolai Nikitenko on YouTube.
So if you send me the YouTube video, I'll put it in the show notes, begrudgingly, because I fucking hate this shit.
Oh man, it is absolutely insane, but it's incredibly entertaining. Like I was on the edge of my seat the entire time watching that. And like, as I said, I'm not going to ruin the ending, but you know, it is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
So, excuse me, sorry. So, is it 1v1 at all times?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So that makes it a little bit better. Because the thing, so it's basically quintet. It's not tag team per se, but it's quintet for actual fighting. Striking.
I believe you can tag in. I think you can tag in.
And then you can swap out mid-fight.
I think so.
Right.
I could be wrong.
Rather than tagging in and it's then 2-on-1.
Yeah.
Right. Because have you seen this Russian team MMA bullshit?
Oh God, is that the 2v2?
It's 4v4, right?
Oh my God.
So it's basically half a basketball court, Joe Rogan's wet dream, but half a basketball court with like matted walls, right? So you can't get out, sort of thing. And it's just 4 fucking lads, and they run across this area and just beat the shit out of each other. And
that's so wild.
And it's like there's dudes literally just laid out, and you see medics run in and drag people to the side that are KO'd. because there's like 4 dudes just grounding and pounding one dude, and I'm like, no, I've got nothing for this. Like, I don't care about this shit. There's nothing to do with me. But that sounds interesting. So yeah, send me the YouTube thing, and I'll put it in the show notes. But I feel like Russians are crazy, mate.
Mate, I'm telling you, the next thing that I seen on from here on my little YouTube rabbit hole sesh was it's another one called Top Dog, and this is like bare knuckle.
Oh god! All right, yeah, fine.
It's bare knuckle, but what's mad is like it'll be like a hair circle for a ring, and then it's just loads of Russians like giving it like divide, horror, like, and like it is mental. Like it's insanely brutal, but again, if you're a fan of technical boxing, like there's no. Trust me. There is some incredibly talented boxers on that one. But yeah, again, you just end up in this wild area of YouTube whenever there's like Russian stuff on there, which is hilarious.
Tell me how you got from Komodo Dragons to bare knuckle fighting.
The algorithm, mate, I swear down, the algorithm just fed me in that direction, and then ended up on slap contests.
God, that is brutal, mate. You talk about Concussion City. Oh my lord, because the dudes that are slapping each other are massive.
Huge. This one that I seen, which is absolutely this is crazy. Like, a security guard for the event got goaded into because it's just whoever steps up. The security guard got goaded into getting involved, and then a random from the crowd just gets in, and it was a doctor's stoppage. Like, it was bad, like really bad.
Did you ever used to play slaps at school?
No, I never. Nah, I wasn't about that. I wasn't about any of that, me.
So we had 2 variations of the game slaps, right? The first one was a game called Knuckles. So essentially the rules of slaps are you put your fingers together, for people not watching the YouTube. You have open palms and you put your fingers so your middle fingers are touching. One person goes first and their aim is to slap your hand. If you move prematurely, it is a free slap. If you move and like evade the shot when they throw it legitimately, the turn passes to you. However, the turn can't be passed to you if you just keep getting hit. So we changed that slightly and made it knuckles. And instead of slapping, it was 2 knuckles together. And the aim was to smash your knuckles over the top of the other person's knuckles, a little bit like conkers. So that got pretty brutal. And then when we decided that wasn't enough, we played a game called Rulers, which was in our construction class. There were metal rulers, right? So you would hold a metal ruler in your hands and go knuckle to knuckle. And the idea was to land the ruler on the opponent's hands, right? And oh my God, the amount of broken knuckles that we had from smacking metal rulers against each other was nuts. But yeah, slaps is a bit of a novelty, and I don't know why I went down that rabbit hole. But on the algorithm thing specifically, like, it's crazy that you can go from Komodo Dragons all the way to bare knuckle Russian hay fighting and slaps just in a stream of consciousness, right? And not even blink an eye, not even question, how did I get here? It's just like, oh, this is logical, I'm going to click this. No, that's definitely logical, I'm going to click this. Yeah, that's scary to me. Their algorithm is scary to me. Yeah.
It's wild, man. Like, but like, that's the thing. Like, I've been learning a little bit of Russian for like passing 90 days and stuff. So I think like maybe that's why it's feeding me into the area. But then again, there's a lot of just crazy Russian stuff on YouTube in general, which is
for sure. Like the guys that climb buildings freehand. Man.
That's terrifying as well.
It's not for me.
Yeah, I can't watch those. Like this, because I just know there's going to be that one video where someone just falls or something. That's awful.
There was a dude, funnily enough, a Russian dude, that was climbing in a Russian forest, and he had his GoPro on, obviously, and he was climbing, and he climbed, I think it was an 80-foot tree, and slipped.
Oh, no way, man.
Done.
Yeah, that's a GG on that one. Like,
yeah, insta done. Did you see the video of the guy that exploded when he hit a bridge when he was I don't know what it's called, but there's people that have like these suits and they open their arms and there's like wings on them that are attached to their legs, and they open their legs as like a little bit and they like glide. I don't know what that's called. Fucking stupid is what it's called, but but that. And there was a guy, again, they didn't release the footage on YouTube of his GoPro, obviously. One probably because it doesn't exist anymore, but there was a woman that was filming like just randomly, and all you hear it before you see it.
Oh God.
But this dude just comes flying, and they think he was going about 85 miles an hour, right? No protection, just him.
God,
and he overshot. He was supposed to go under the bridge. It was like a big curved bridge. He was supposed to go under it, and he didn't judge it properly, and he hit a brick wall, and he exploded on impact.
That's absolutely terrifying.
Fucking mental.
Did you ever play like any of the old Quake games or anything like that?
I did not.
Okay, well, there was a gun on that, and it was called, a game mode on that where like it was called Insta-Gib.
Oh God.
And it was when you got shot once, you just explode. I guess it was probably something like that, which is pretty gnarly. Christ, that's pretty terrifying.
Yeah, YouTube rabbit holes are no joke.
They're not, man. Like, but what's mad is you end up coming away with like this random knowledge, like about how far a Komodo dragon can smell blood, and how long can a dog jump as a world record and stuff.
Could you imagine if a Komodo dragon managed to get into one of those Russian bare knuckle fighting hay bale competitions?
I reckon the Komodo dragon would win all day, every day.
Oh, I mean, it would smell all of the blood from God knows how long, and everyone dies.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Like,
just get eaten alive.
But imagine if you could tame it so it would adhere to the rules of bare knuckle fighting.
I mean, I think if you could tame a dragon to only try and box with you, it can't stand on its hind legs, can it?
I don't think they can do it very effectively.
Right, I was gonna say, because that thing's fucked. You just keep punching its nose in, and it's gonna do nothing. Like, that is a fucking 50-45 for Pete.
50-45.
That's what that is, mate.
No, it's like
Jesus.
But again, like, speaking of like these types of things, you just end up on these. It is really wild how the algorithm can just feed you in a certain direction, man. It's incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful stuff. But like, the thing is as well, it probably takes me on those like towards more combat sports type stuff, is because obviously that's what I'm involved in quite a lot, and I'm not gonna lie, I do search for a lot of that stuff anyways, but
exactly.
So it's probably easy pickings, but
for sure. And I think, the algorithm is user derived, right? So
of course,
okay, there may be hooks. Like if you're using Chrome, for instance, your search history will be fed back to YouTube, and without getting too conspiratorial, probably the rest of your data finds its way through some form of YouTube algorithm or Google algorithm anyway.
Of course, because
regardless of browser, if you're going to Google, ergo your data is passing through Google servers. But there was the most recent Ari Shafir, who's a comedian. He did a test where he just searched for kittens for 2 weeks, solid, nothing else, watched nothing but kitten videos, and then I'm sure it was a great time. His entire YouTube algorithm, his entire YouTube dashboard, his entire suggestions was just cats, right? So it will learn what you attempt to teach it, whether we're teaching it consciously or subconsciously, by what you're searching and the tags that are based. Like, it will throw stuff up to try, right? Your suggestion feed, you'll find things that are what you determine to be completely off topic, but there will be relational connections between those tags, between the tagging of the metadata of those videos that are uploaded. And depending on what you choose, you're adding to the relational connections. So that then feeds somebody else's suggestion. And it's this entire community of relational connections based on metadata tagging. And what you choose more it will throw more at you because it wants you to enjoy the platform, right? It wants to keep you, it wants to keep you engaged. And if it can, it's going to send you down a rabbit hole where you start at Komodo Dragons and you end at Russian bare knuckle fighting, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is, man. It's really, really intriguing how all that stuff works behind the scenes with it. For good and bad, of course.
For sure. You touched on Quake. One of the things that I've done through this lockdown is play games a lot to keep me sane.
Absolutely.
What have you done? Because I know that you're a massive CS:GO guy.
Yeah, so I've been so basically me and a couple of our friends who we used to play, I think, a lot of CS:GO competitively back in the day, various teams, LAN events and stuff. And like we it was in October, and I messaged them and I was like, right, lads, let's get back on it. Let's get back on it, and I'll make us a couple of Counter-Strike edits, and we'll just see how it goes. Just so we've got a memory of us all playing together again, and after so long and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we got back on the grind, man. We were playing every single day, like fucking like up to 6 hours of just nothing but like competitive games over and over and over, just grinding it out. And we made a few we made literally like 3 montages worth of like frag clips and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. And it was special because it was like, we all hadn't done it in a long time, and we just came and had lots of fun. And it really got me back into playing video games again, after a very long time of just not playing, especially to that sort of standard too. But one of the things that one of the things I've realized is like CS:GO is really cool and it's very rewarding to play and stuff like that. But I actually really, really enjoy a good like RPG game, like a good story-rich RPG game. Like one of the games I played after so much recommendation, and it's a shame that I hadn't played it sooner, was Final Fantasy IX. Now that is a tremendous game, an absolutely tremendous game. And to think that this was made in the year 2000, well, released in the year 2000, is insane. Like turn-based, really, really cool, super rich story. And one of the things that blew my mind as well is, and I might just be completely wrong about this, but like at one point in the game, like you go to this like mountainous area and there's these dwarves in the mountains, and they they speak perfect Scottish slang, like perfect Scottish slang. So like, when it brings up the subtitle, like obviously the text and stuff, it is just all perfect Scottish slang. And it blows my mind to think that in an era where like in the year 2000, how many pages do you think Google had back then? Very, very, like probably less than 1 million, right?
Oh God, no, definitely more than 1 million, but nowhere near the amount that you've got now.
Yeah, of course, like a really low amount, right?
Yeah.
So they must have sent, like, surely they must have either sent someone over there or had someone who was insanely good with the translation to like really understand, because there's so much to Scottish slang. There's so much to it. Yeah, and like the level of detail that is in that is just insane. And the story of it is super poignant as well. It's a really, really, really good story. So again, if anyone is into RPG games, and just wants something like at a relatively slow pace, by all means, get yourself in Final Fantasy 9 or Final Fantasy Tactics. That's another one that's close to my heart too. So yeah.
So why do you play games?
That's the question. So the when it came to CS, when it came to Counter-Strike, it was just one of those things where it was really fun to like hit like in crazy no scopes or like insane like one tap clips and stuff like this. I found that really, really fun and really rewarding and stuff. Of course, you got to try and win too, and there's a lot that comes along with that as well. If you can hit some crazy stuff in a game and still smash someone and win outright and rank up, and that was what it was all about. It was, but I actually realized that it's more like I enjoy just spending time with my mates, like and that's kind of what it is. When I play single player games, it's more like I kind of look at it how some people would, look at reading a book and stuff, and they want a good story, and of course why you got the book to begin with. But like just having such a story-rich game with great character development, which lends itself to like a great novel would, is that's kind of what I look to it in that regard too. But it's a different form of media, and it's really interactive. So you kind of have your own experience of it as well.
Do you think that your perception of why you play games has changed as you've gotten older?
Yeah, I reckon so. But like that's because I kind of look at things in a strange sense of like, I look at it in a way like, for example, I've skateboarded for 20 years. So it's like my time with skateboarding is coming to an end. So I look at skateboarding in a completely different light than 10 years ago, than 5 years ago, than 15 and such. So I kind of look at it in a sense of where it's like, had like I had my fun caring about it so much to be in a competitive sense, to now where it's like, let's just have fun with this, man. Like, let's create some cool memories, and like, it's crazy as well because the people that you play games with, like for example, a lot the guys who I play with, I've known them for 10 plus years and stuff. It was just mad because to think that when you first meet these type of people, you're going to be friends for like that amount of time. You don't know that, of course. You're just friends with each other on Steam, and then boom, 10 years down the line, you're still playing games together, man. Like it's wild, man.
Do you think that it's conducive to a personality trait that's unique to you, or do you think that eventually when you've mastered something, it revolves or centers back to being social and enjoying time with your friends? Do you think that's conducive to you, or do you think that's a globally determined trait?
I think that's probably pretty global, because when you think about it, like, you get a lot of people who, like, for example, just look at like, people in fighting, for example, after a certain amount of time, they hit a peak, and then that peak starts to taper off. And then it tends to be either go into coaching, or they just enjoy their career but still involved with the sport in some sort of sense of the word. So I kind of look at it as a fairly global thing. But I also look at those types of situations as it gives you an opportunity to explore other avenues. Like for example, I've with skateboarding, and like recently I've kind of got back into it a fair bit, but like I've kind of like achieved, in terms of, I say achieved, but in terms of like landing tricks and mastering tricks and stuff like that, as much as I kind of have wanted to, there's only a couple things left for that. And it's like I want to go and film those tricks and make like a sort of a little montage of me at the moment doing stuff that I should have done many moons ago but haven't, of course. But like just as a memory, something to look back on. And like I kind of feel as if I owe that to my future self to do that, especially with how much of a beating skateboarding puts on my body right now. It's definitely something that I'm trying to do for my future self to look back on.
So, I mean, I think there's a couple of questions I have. The first one is, you touched on you want a good storyline, you want something that's got character development, you want something that's rich and engaging and without the essence of competition, really, right?
Yeah.
Because something like Final Fantasy 9, obviously, you're killing things and you're achieving goals and you're completing tasks and whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not competitive in the same way that a ranked lobby on CS:GO would be, right?
Absolutely.
Or when you'd play ranked Call of Duty or whatever it is, right? It's not the same thing. You're playing for fulfillment. You're playing for enjoyment, not to win. That's not to say that winning isn't fulfilling or enjoyable, because obviously that's the endorphins, right? It's exactly those two things, but it's a less aggressive notion, right? And the reason why I asked whether that was a globally determined thing is because I found personally that when I play certain games, I cannot play for the enjoyment. I have to play to win.
That's kind of how I look at CS
Yeah.
in a degree. There's always part of me that does that. Like I get like really competitive, but now it's at a point where I'm starting to catch myself doing that, and I'm like, no, just have fun, man. Like just try and have fun. Try and win, of course, but just do the stuff that is gonna make it fun for you and your mates, man. Like we do like mad strats, like where we all stack on each other's heads and throw nades at the same time when we think they're gonna peek, or throw molotovs on the bomb so they can't defuse the bomb, and like what I mean, like all that kind of stuff is a lot of fun, and you don't get that when you're trying to be super competitive. But yeah, the thing is, when it comes back to, as we're saying, when it comes to like those single player experiences like we mentioned with Final Fantasy, like it's like the stories in those games like can really be compared to like great novels. Like there's a lot, and it sounds crazy for me to say that as well, but like for example in that Final Fantasy 9, there's a lot of stuff in there about mortality and love, heartbreak. There's so many things in that story which make it such a beautiful piece of media. And then of course the music in that game
Of course.
is unbelievably composed. Like I forget how to pronounce the composer's name, of course, so I'm not going to try, but basically he is a god. He is an actual musical god. Like I would be lying if I was to say to you that that game did not bring a tear to my eye at the end. Do you know what I mean? That is a phenomenal piece of media. And again, like I said previously, anyone who hasn't played it or is contemplating playing it, I highly recommend it for you.
I think that there is games hack the human brain in a way. Now, there's obviously lots and lots and lots of different types of games, right?
Absolutely.
There's games that are high octane. There are games that are super slow paced. There are games that are very challenge orientated, puzzle orientated. But when you've got a game like Final Fantasy, now I've not played Final Fantasy 9. However, when you've got a game like that that's entirely immersive, it tricks the human brain or hacks the human brain in a way that gets you so engrossed in the story and in the characters, and it forces you to make decisions about how you feel about the characters, how you want to interact with them in the game. You dream about them, you think about them, you think about the movements of the game, the mechanics of the game, the way that it moves, the way that it feels, the way the music makes you feel, the way the music progresses, the story and the cutscenes and everything else. I don't think at this point especially, we're not playing Pong anymore, right? The way that games have progressed, and I think Final Fantasy was a blueprint in a lot of ways to some of the games that you play now, where you make a decision and that alters the way that the game moves, right? Or Final Fantasy had the blueprint for that by being so rich in story that the way to make it more rich is that you could play it over and over again and have a different outcome every time.
Absolutely.
But I think it tricks the human brain in a way that it's as if you're watching a film or as if you are reading a book. You're really there. You're really there in that scene, or the character that you are playing. You're really that character. You embody that person. You begin to think like that person, or think like you determine that person would think. And you feel like the goals that they're achieving in the game are your goals, right? You want to, when your in real life day is done, let's just say, you want to go back to that game and pick up that story. One, to find out what's happening because you understand it's not real, but also to be that vessel to experience those things. And I think that's one of the things that's so immersive about games like that, where you're just on your own. You're not talking to anyone on Discord. You're not texting. You're not this. You're not that. You are that character going through that journey of the game.
Yeah, I completely and wholeheartedly agree with that, man. And like, it's like that kind of stuff is really powerful. It's like how if you watch a film which didn't have any music in it, like it would lose a lot of like emotion, like a lot of its emotive responses from you visually when you look at it. But when you combine the two, it's an entirely different sort of experience. And video games encapsulate that so well, as you're saying. Like it's especially when the game's just super immersive, as we stated. But
Do you think? Sorry, go on. Sorry.
I was just going to go on to say, like, with those type of games, I feel like less is more. So like back then, when you think about the technology that they had, they couldn't do like fully 3D combat scenes where like, you're permanently in control of the characters, and all that sort of stuff, and being all crazy like they have in the more modern games. So they did it on a turn-based sort of system where, you know, you had to basically slow it down. And then because of that, you end up getting more immersed, in my opinion. But having it in a sense where it's like less is more, I find it even more immersive. Like I've played a lot of like the more recent Final Fantasy games where like you are in control of the characters throughout, and I kind of find it harder to you know to immerse myself with those type of games compared to the older ones, I guess.
That lays a really nice foundation for the question I was going to ask anyway, and that's that in 15 years, let's just say,
Yeah.
how immersive do you think? Let's say you were playing Final Fantasy 9, but through a VR headset.
See, I think that would be I think that would be really cool. But I think games are going to change so much if in the 3D, the VR era.
100%.
It's going to be pretty wild. And like I like right now, I've got a PC good enough to run a VR headset if I want to.
For now.
Yeah, for now, of course, yeah. But like a lot what's crazy is like one of my friends, Will, he's got one, and he was telling me about like how there's a thing they like in the VR gaming community, they call it getting your VR legs, I believe is what it's called.
Right.
And it's like because obviously you can't just walk around freely, and it move in the game. So you've got to use a controller or some form of way of moving, whether it's mouse clicks or using analog sticks. And so many people get like wigged out and end up having like really gnarly sort of like headaches and stuff, like motion sickness, because they're not used to, they get so immersed in the visual aspect that they don't realize they feel weird moving without their legs. So it's called like getting your VR legs, is when they get over that and they can spend long periods of time in VR. And that, just for that alone to be a phenomena, is crazy, right?
That's going to change very rapidly. I think you fix that really quickly by shipping your VR headset with a multi-directional treadmill.
Yes, I agree.
That reacts to either to the game or to the input of changing the direction of your person. So if the person's standing on it and they're walking forward, the treadmill isn't going to go at like level 13 as you would regularly know a treadmill. It's going to go at the speed that you're walking. And that's what's going to get even more crazy, is if you wanted to, let's say you're playing, I don't know, Skyrim, right? And you just wanted to plod along at like a really slow shuffle and have a look around at the city that you're in, you could do that. But if you wanted to sprint away from something, which you're going to have to do at certain times, it will sprint however fast you can sprint. In the same way, the way that really is going to change things is things like football games, right? Or Call of Duty games, right? Or even a skateboarding game. If you're playing football, if you're playing a FIFA game, let's say it's FIFA, I don't know, 30, let's just say, and you whack a VR headset on, and there is a game mode, or was a game mode. I've not played FIFA in a few years, but there was a game mode called Be a Pro, where you built a character and you were just that player. You couldn't control the rest of the team like you could on regular FIFA. You only controlled yourself, what was determined to be yourself. And that is a blueprint for the VR future, that you will build a game, or you'll build a pro, you'll build a player, and you will play as that player, literally.
Yeah, like that'll be wild, especially when they fix like the mechanics of how to make the game work correctly and stuff. Like,
absolutely,
that is going to be huge.
It's going to be insane.
Like as well, like I don't know too much about this, but again, for anyone who's listening, it's probably another rabbit hole for them. But there's Gabe Newell from Steam, the guy who runs that. Yeah.
Yes, I don't know.
Like
Obviously, I don't know him personally, but yes, I've heard of him.
I
Yeah.
believe they were trying to do something where it was like brain interfacing technology.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
That's wild. Like just like I obviously again I don't know much to add substance to what I'm saying here, but like just alone, just that title just sounds crazy.
Yeah. So there's been technology for a little while for people that are either physically impaired or visually impaired. They can either talk to a PC and it'll do what you need it to do, or you can have a mouse that's controlled by your eyes. So you can navigate the mouse from your eyes. And then if you wanted to open an application and the cursor appears on Steam, let's just say, well, you can configure it that if you blink your left eye, it will click and the app will open, and you can have an on-screen keyboard and all of this stuff. I mean, that's the building blocks for the future. So if you're sat here playing a game, let's say you're playing Final Fantasy, and if the game was so open that you could be walking down the street. Let's use GTA because this thing is more socially acceptable in GTA. You're walking down a street of Los Angeles in GTA, and there's some guy eating a burger, and your brain's like, "Oh, I want to eat that burger." That your character will just take the burger off this dude and eat it. Right? Or if you're walking down the street and you see a fight, you're like, "Oh, I'm going to get involved." Your character just runs over and starts fighting dudes.
Yeah, like it's going to be incredible to see where things go. It's going to be really, really incredible. Like man, you can't, again, it's like to think about like pre-internet days, like when like to like then think of the iPhone. Like it is like you can't conceive just how good it's going to be until it arrives,
Yeah. I kind of had a very loosely related not argument, but conversation with one of my friends where he was talking about how he doesn't think that working in an office is dead, right? And he was like, "Oh well, we only entered the technology age, the sort of technology age like 250 years ago." And I was like, "And look at where we are now. What do you think is going to happen in the 250 years? We went from essentially nothing to an iPhone, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you expect to happen? The exponential rate of tech getting better. If we just, I mean, I feel like it's a curve like this, right, of progress. And for people that are listening, I'm doing a vastly accented curve, right? But even if it's just a straight line of progress, right, from going from nothing to an iPhone, in 250 years, if the iPhone looks like a candle did 250 years ago, what the fuck do you think we're actually going to be using? But I don't think it's going to be like that at all. I think for us to get to the iPhone was 250 years. For us to be where it's incomprehensible, the tech that we're using, I don't think 50 years is a crazy number to throw out, really.
Yeah, I really don't, especially because like the exponential growth of how technology, improves, and processing power and everything like that is insane. Like it's absolutely crazy. And like who's to say like, your office environment won't be with VR? Like there's a dude who I seen on who does a lot of videos on VR on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and he just as an experiment recreated his entire bedroom in VR. And like he just lived a day in VR. It's just mad. And like he's like sitting down on the sofa, which is in a sofa in real life, with his feet up on a coffee table, which is there in VR and in real life. And it's just so wild. It would be so strange to take your headset off after that and be back in like, the real world, quote unquote.
Can I offer you my dystopian view of what I think the world could potentially look like if we're not careful?
By all means, let's do it.
So let's do it's a thought experiment of sorts, but I'll lead you down the path with a variety of questions. I'm going to use the word need. So think very clearly about what the word need means, a necessity.
Oh, okay.
What do you, as Steve McBriarty, what do you need to leave your house for right now?
Are we saying pandemic? Are we saying non-pandemic answers?
Regular world, what do you need to leave your house for?
Jiu-jitsu.
So,
Photography.
okay. Do you
Skateboarding.
need to leave your house for that? Is
Yes.
that a need?
I would say so, yes. I would say so, yes.
Okay, so I would definitely argue that it's not a need. Like, in order to just keep you alive, right? Regardless of your mental state, but I would put them down, those 4 things: photography, jiu-jitsu, skateboarding, and I forgot the other one. But for those 3 things, I would definitely have them as wants, right? And I'll explain why I think they're wants in a second.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. I see where you're going. Like, sorry to cut you off short. Like, I'm guessing technically, you can just use Amazon to bring you food, bring you whatever you want, you know. So it tends to be necessities are wearing very thin, really. But let's proceed. I'm enjoying this.
So I think you sort of made the majority of my point, my contextual point there, which is
Sorry.
no, absolutely. I think it makes a lot of sense. The necessities to keep us alive, frankly, at this point, we don't need to go and hunt and gather them, right? They can literally be delivered to the room that we are in with us doing nothing other than clicking some buttons and having some digital numbers in one place, and that those digital numbers arrive in another place, right? So if the things that we absolutely need to survive can be delivered to us, we can go a slight rung higher and say, well, things like social interaction is important, right? Relationships, all these kinds of things. Well, we're having, to a degree, an in-depth conversation, and you're 300 miles away.
Yep.
Maybe 200 miles away, right? So that's not a need, right? We're able to have a lengthy discussion, not being in the same room as each other. If I said to you, you don't have to go into the office anymore, you can do all of your work remotely, and that's I don't mean you specifically, I mean plural, you as a generalization. I think personally, a lot of the younger generation specifically would take that opportunity, right? You save on travel costs, you save on time, you save on equipment, you save on eating out, all this stuff. If I then said to you, here's a VR headset, and you can arrive in your office and it looks exactly like it was, and the avatars that you see are the same people that you used to work with, and you can interact with them. You can virtually shake their hand. You can virtually sit down at a desk and have a coffee with them and have all this discussion. Would you do that? Maybe the answer is yes.
Virtually tell them to fuck off.
If you wanted to, right?
Sorry, I just wanted to.
You could virtually go up to that manager and reenact the moment in Click, the film The Click, which is the only funny moment in that film, where Adam he pauses his manager and whacks the shit out of him and then starts it again, and his manager is just a crumple on the floor, which is a phenomenal part of the film. Anyway, my overarching point here is, with the progression of VR and the lack of necessity for you to leave your house, I suspect that there is a possibility, and one that I fear is quite high, that if a VR headset was marketed to you, that you could do your work tasks in it, right? The integration with games was so good that you could have a competitive jiu-jitsu experience or a leisurely skateboarding experience sat at your desk that you could not tell the difference of mentally. If you could then, if we think about VR and its capabilities, if you wanted to go on holiday, quote unquote, well, you could think of any place in the world and you could be transported there at any period of time. If you wanted to go and see when the dinosaurs were roaming around, you could think about that and VR would create that for you. I feel like that is a richness that regular life can't match in a lot of ways, because a lot of humans are based on stimuli, and that is a level of stimulus that the brain is just not ready for. So it'll act like a drug. And I suspect it will be an incredibly addictive one. And if that's undersold, let's say it's Amazon VR, right? Well, you put the VR headset on and you go and you're playing games or you're doing work or whatever it is. And then Amazon says, oh, you haven't eaten in 3 hours. Your regular eating time is 12 midday. The last 5 meals you've eaten are this. Would you like us to place an order for you? And you can just say yes, and it will order everything for you. And then you get a knock at the door and your food's there. That becomes a very habitual, unconscious task that happens. If you need water, well, water comes with your food delivery. If you're getting sick, the Amazon headset will tell you that a flu's coming and it will pre-prescribe you something and it just gets delivered to you whilst you're in the VR world. I feel personally like there is all inroads for VR, for AI, for tech in general, is moving us to a sedentary point.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And I agree more so on the fact that, like, as you're saying about, a lot of humans are like, they need that stimuli in a way. And it's but at the same time, and don't get me wrong, I can very much see the same thing, is what you're saying. But I think the things that would stop that is, like, look at how easy we have things now in terms of like survival, right? But because of that, also look at the social problems that arise in our civilization because of that. Like, for example, you don't have to go and hunt and gather food anymore. It's all really easy. And then you get the people who they kind of need a problem to overcome, so they'll create their own problems in their own communities, and then things will occur from that way on. And I think that would only get worse and worse and worse and worse, is with what you're saying, because no one's going to have these issues to overcome, and a lot of people see that as their their calling to try and overcome some enemy, or this, that, the other, or like it becomes very tribal. But just to go on about the stimuli thing, like, for example, I was out skateboarding today, and there's a lot of tricks which are super technical that I like to try, and it's stuff that I could do when I was in my skateboarding prime, if you will. And like, if I go out now and I land, like, I have to try these tricks. I have to try them, because if I don't, I feel as if I've not had a good session, right? So you end up chasing the dragon of like this stimuli, this dopamine release of landing these tricks. And if you don't get them, you end up keep trying and trying and trying and trying until you do, and you end up in this crazy cycle of just chasing after this like dopamine release. And I think a lot of people need that. A lot of people need that in a way. But the sad thing about it, for example, for me, my skateboarding is like, I can feel the wear in my body and like how things are no longer the way they were in that prime. So it makes it even harder. So you end up with that battle just going even more so. But I also think VR, no matter how good it gets, I don't believe it'll ever get to a point where it'll be able to recreate that bit in real life. Do you know what I mean?
I understand what you mean, but I entirely disagree. So
yeah, I can see your point as well, but I just feel you're never going to get the amount of variables which is required for a real life experience to occur in VR. I feel as if there's always going to be that clinicalness of it. Do you know what I mean? It's always going to it's going to be immersive, yes, but like I can't see it ever. Like, and again, this might be me being a Philistine and just being super ignorant, but I can't imagine it ever getting to a point where, like, you're feeling the wind through your hair, you're feeling the adrenaline of trying something, or those kinds of things. I think those are going to be very inherent. Well, adrenaline is probably not the best one. I reckon you probably get that from VR pretty easily. But those environmental sort of conditions which are in that space in real life, I think I really, really struggle to see them ever being able to effectively, of course, being able to recreate that in the VR space. But
So I'm gonna make a couple of points. So the first one is about the social change, the tribalism that's currently inherent to what we have now, essentially because of how good life is. Life as we know it ceases to exist if this comes into serious play. If it's mass adopted, there is no such thing as life as we know it, because the real dystopia, the movie level dystopia, is
the globalists.
We look around, right, and we see people want space in their living, right? You live in a house that has more than one room. It's got a bathroom, it's got a living room, it's got a kitchen, it's got a bedroom, it's got a cellar, it's got all of this stuff, right? Windows, all of this stuff, right? Well, if you are so dependent and your life is now lived inherently through your VR experience, what do you need multiple rooms for, right? You don't, is the short answer. So we could be, if we continue on down this rabbit hole, down this thought experiment, we could end up in a situation where people are confined by choice, right? Because this is all about marketing. You could be confined by choice to a room that fits a toilet, a sink, maybe a shower, and a bed and a desk, right? Or somewhere that this VR headset is situated. That then allows the population to grow, not that it will, because people won't be engaging in that way. But I feel like life ceases if you can't make autonomous choices in your real life, but the autonomy of choice is essentially limitless in a VR world. I don't think we have any notion of how society will look. I don't anyway, because I'm an idiot. But I think if you are engaged in solely in a VR environment where the possibilities are limitless, who fucking knows what's going to happen? Who fucking knows? And to your second point of effectively recreating things that are human, I will ask you this question. Do you think an iPhone is effective?
I'd say it's very effective.
Okay, cool. If you go 250 years ago and communication was done by either lighting fires for miles and miles and miles for a pre-prescribed understanding of what that means, or if a letter was given to a bird or a person and they traveled for days to send that message, if you ask somebody, do you think that there is a better way that this could be done? The answer almost certainly would be no. If you said to somebody, I reckon that you could send a message to somebody on the other side of the world in under a second, I think that they would not believe you.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we have to come to terms with the idea that technology can and probably will grow at a rate that is incomprehensible to us. So when I hear the argument of, I don't think technology will be able to recreate something that is human, I just can't believe it. I just can't. You know,
this is what I'm saying. Like I might be just being very Philistine and very ignorant, but it's just it's incomprehensible to me at the current time, which makes me like those Romans, of course.
So yes. I absolutely agree with you that it's incomprehensible, but I believe it will happen. I really, really do.
Yeah, and it's again, this type of stuff is a really interesting sort of thought experiment, as you're saying. But like I was saying, like I think potentially society would probably come to some form of collapse before we got to that point, of course, because like there's a quote, isn't there? Like I hope I get this right now because I'm probably gonna absolutely butcher it, but isn't it like hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times?
Yes.
Have you heard that one before? Yeah.
Yes. That's an elaboration of the 7 versions or the 7 phases of society. The last one before crumble is gluttony.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're as close to it as possible, I guess, when we're in this thought experiment. But so I think society would probably come to some form of collapse prior to that, of course. But it's very, very dystopian, as you're saying. But like, what's funny is whenever you said dystopian earlier on, it just reminds me of the X-Men cartoon where it's like in the future and all the buildings are burning down and those giants are walking around shooting laser beams out their eyes, and you got Wolverine jumping around. Where?
I mean, for me, I think I go a step further, and I think we have consciously chosen to stop being human quite a while ago. And the reason why I say that is, and again, this is, I have to be very careful about how I define this. I'm not defining well, actually I am. Like, I was going to say, I'm not defining the choice of being human to be solely biological, but I am. If we look 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, right, the use of technology was sparing. And what I mean by tech is automation, AI, computing power. Tech back then was, yeah, cool. Maybe a guy would drive around and deliver your milk, right? Possibly.
Yeah.
Maybe you could ride around on a bicycle, right? And that would make life a bit easier. But computing technology was used sparingly. Mechanical technology was vast, right?
Yep.
However, the moment that we chose to become one, or at least to become less than one human and portions of one mechanical, was the adoption of mobile phones, for instance, telephones, right? Laptops, computers. So much. Think about all the photos that you've taken, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of thousands at this point, right?
Absolutely.
How many of them do you remember?
Oh, God, that's a lot. That's like a heavy question to begin with, but also, like, I remember a significant portion, but don't make me wrong. Like, there's times when, like fairly recently, when I went through the drives and stuff, I've been like, "Fucking hell, I forgot about this. This is an old gem." This, but like, it's gonna happen.
I would be massively impressed if you could remember 10,000 photos, right? And of the hundreds of thousands of photos that you've taken, if you've never deleted any, even the really shit ones that make no sense whatsoever, right? This was somebody's foot or some shit. Like, if you'd never deleted any, there would be a minute percentage that you would be able to recall without stimulus. The only stimulus being the agency of your thought. However, that hard drive never forgets, mate.
It's true.
The conversations
what we're doing right now.
Right. This is exactly my point, right?
Yeah.
The hard drive on my PC will never forget this if I tell it not to. But there will be portions of this. There's portions of this conversation that I've already forgotten because I'm so present about this particular topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are portions of things that we've said that I don't remember. They've already gone.
Yeah.
So the choice for us to save our memories, to expand the drive capacity of our brain, is inherently bionic, right? Elon Musk has got that famous quote about, somebody asked him, when do you think we're going to become cyborgs? And he was like, that phone's incredibly close to your body, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've already got medical science that puts metal into humans, right? My mother had 2 metal hips, a metal knee, right? And that allowed her to function. You've got army vets that have got reconstructed limbs because of the atrocities they've seen in war.
Yeah.
The choice to amalgamate with tech isn't a choice of when, it's already happened. It's more just that people are increasingly aware of how the definition of what it is to be human is slipping and is changing, it's morphing. Now, that could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, I don't know. But to just round off this erroneous ramble, I think when you were saying about society crumbling, I don't think so, because I think we're merely choosing to change the way society exists by the very nature that we're choosing to change the way that being a human exists. I think the models of society of old no longer work with the choices that we are making. And tech is evolving, and we are adopting tech faster than our minds can expand the rationale of what's happening. Therefore, we're like, oh, everything's crumbling. No, this is just the reaction to the action of change that we've adopted. And we are adopting change faster than we can determine.
Yeah, I agree. But like I was saying, like, I more to your point, and the reasoning of your point as well is why I believe a lot of social issues will arise, and I feel it's going to be those social issues that arise that end up causing, you know, significant issues, if not the downfall in the end. And it's a shame. It's looping back to what we were saying at the start of the podcast, and you know, I just wish like a lot of people would just begin to just accept other people's points of view and not cause so much of a stir or whatever like that when if they have a disagreement over political or religious views or, you know, social views and stuff like that. Like, you know, like for me, for example, like I've got a lot of friends who have got vastly different views and, you know, on virtually everything. And, you know, they're all lovely people. Like I'm, you know, I treat them as if like how they treat me and vice versa and this, that, and the other, and base them on how they interact with myself. But there's a lot of things like they say I don't agree with, and there's probably a lot of things I say they don't agree with. There's probably a lot of things that both of us have said on this podcast already, which people tend to not agree with. And, you know, I think that's healthy. And I think it can be healthy in a way as long as people don't get emotional with those sorts of things. And, you know, like I said, it's a shame when you see people being like, oh, fuck you, you don't agree with me, delete me, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, you know, that's a shame, man. That's a shame because you're losing an opportunity to have your own views challenged and see what sticks and see what you really think because of that, and not because of, you know, either some headline or a social media outcry that you've, you know, jumped on the bandwagon with. And obviously that can, I don't mean it in a derogatory sense, but you see a lot of people get swept under, you know, social media opinion without, you know, doing their own research. And I feel, you know, that's very sad because it's like in a time when you've got access to as much information as we do on the internet, like sometimes all it takes is a Google search to find out the truth. Or if people just wait a week before determining an opinion, it turns out to be something completely different. And you know, it's why I'm always I don't use social media at all to post political opinions or anything like that. I that is my space to basically post. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Tom, how you doing, lad? Not heard you from you in a couple of years. But yeah, I use that as a sort of place to post stuff I want to remember, you know, or like cool stuff that's happened in my life, or, you know, just to post positive. Like I like putting positivity out there in terms of like, you know, whether it's like a funny video, if it's cats, you know, because, you know, you can't not like them, do you know what I mean? Or otters, you know, stuff like, or seeing how my friends are doing, you know, like, you know, I'd like to post like my friends being like having successes as well, you know. It's I just kind of wish people would use it for those means instead of you know, falling into this trap where, like, you know, you have to form an opinion on absolutely everything that's out there in the current times. And, you know, it can be good or bad.
So I think there's only two things I have to say on that. And the first one is the delete me notion is inherently born from the tech era, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you were in a town that had, you know, let me take my town where I grew up, right? There was about 200,000 people that lived in that town. Now, 200,000 people sounds like a lot, but it's crazy how everyone knew everyone, predominantly, right? At least in my age group, anyway.
Yeah.
If there was a disagreement that you had with somebody that meant that you didn't want to converse with them anymore, That was fine. However, there was no getting away that everyone hung around at the same social gathering spots. So you were going to run into that person, and you had to develop the social means to navigate that without just fighting every time you saw each other.
Absolutely.
However, Delete Me is entirely based on the notion that you have no physical interaction with that person ever. Right?
Yeah.
And if the go-to notion that we've just touched on is, if you don't like my opinion, delete me, rather than let's have an open discussion where we share ideas and it's okay to be wrong, then that's a problem, right? That's a real problem. Now, it's a real problem if we want to stay human, but I'm just not sure that as a race that we do. And the second point I wanted to make was, you brilliantly added the line, if you can have an open discussion and not get emotional, right? But the issue we have is that emotion is currency now, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely. The algorithms that we are governed by, frankly, in this day and age, organically learn that negative emotions, or things that have connotations to negative emotions, anger, fear, worry, anxiety, sadness, these things are the things that capture our attention, right? So when the greatest example of this is the Trump campaign. So yeah, for anyone that doesn't know about what happened with Cambridge Analytica, go and have a look. I'm not going to waffle on about a synopsis. But what Cambridge Analytica were able to utilize was aggression, anger, fear, to drive conversation in a certain way. And people are not rational actors generally when they are angry or fearful or scared or emotional in a negative or positive way, frankly. So if you can allow an algorithm to govern people and channel people towards anger and hatred and all of these things, and if you as a content creator, a person that's making money, that wants attention, well, if all you have to do is be derogatory and controversial and elicit these emotions from people, that's what you're going to do, right?
Well, look at clickbait headlines.
Right, one of the fucking worst things in the world.
Like, dude gets kicked in the nuts while proposing to his wife, or fiance rather.
Yeah.
What happens next will shock you.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like those are the things that capture the attention, man. And it's, I feel journalism has suffered greatly because of that, massively, because you end up with these gnarly clickbait headlines, and then that's what it takes for them to basically generate the clicks, generate the money, and that's how they survive. Yeah. And then of course they pollute the, you know, the civil discussions that are supposed to be had around these issues with the you know, purporting in their articles. It's a huge shame.
I agree. I completely agree. And I don't really know what if there is a solution, because the youth, I say the youth, Jesus, the people that are generations lower than us are being born into this, right? So they know, unless we teach them, they know no different. And the real sadness that brings to me specifically is, you only know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. So if you've never experienced, let's use the, you know, journalism for whatever, if you've never experienced unbiased journalism, then the way that you get your news is by watching the dumpster fire on Twitter, or by reading this clickbait headline that's been fashioned to you by a CNN or a Fox or the Sun or whatever. And if you don't have the inclination to go and search for something that's different, you won't. And that is your sphere of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And Man, it's there's a lot, like there's so much to unpack around this entire subject when it comes to,
Mm.
especially in the political sphere.
Mhm.
Like it becomes a very, very, very strange and also quite a dangerous place to navigate as well.
Agree.
Like it's it's one of those ones where it's like I just wish everyone would kind of wait a few days before developing an opinion on a particular matter, and try and apply as much logic as they can, and reasoning, of course, and just end of the day, just like, respect each other's views, man. Like I think a lot of communities would be a lot more sort of, you know, friendly with each other if that was the case.
I agree. So
But
let's pivot slightly to rounding off sort of this whole thing. You mentioned, lockdowns ending and whatever. What's the plan?
so for the end of lockdown, well, when lockdown's over and we can reopen and stuff like that, like I want to basically, my goals are I want to be able to have, structured conversations in Russian. I'm excited to learn that
Wow.
properly.
Okay. Yeah.
I've been doing that for 90 days currently, so I'm going to keep that going. Um, as well, for anyone out there who wants to learn a new language, hit up Nicole at LanguageScape on Insta.
Yes, absolutely. I will tag her in this. Yeah.
So there you go. As well, like I think if you want to learn a language, just if you've got friends or you meet people from those areas of the world, just ask them to teach you, and just just have a good time with it. Immerse yourself, listen to the music. Like I've been listening to a lot of Russian music, and it's not just the hard bass, of course,
Yeah.
but there's
Yes.
there's so many gems, man. There's so many gems, like like great songs that I've found just by just again, it's the algorithm, as we're coming back to it. I don't even need to visit the country to have the the musical culture imparted on me.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so yeah, I want to do that. And with me getting back into skateboarding now, like I'd love to be in a situation where I could coach skateboarding. I feel as if I could, I've got a lot of value I could give in that area. So
It's
um,
important that you teach people how to skateboard. I think genuinely, no, genuinely, like I think it's important.
absolutely, man. And like it's something that I feel would keep me still involved in the sport, and also just I really enjoy seeing people learn when it comes to stuff. And like similarly, I'd love to be in a situation where I could teach jiu-jitsu.
Mhm.
Um, but that's like, especially because, I've been in a very fortunate, very, very fortunate situation where like
You're a
I literally,
sandbagger. The best white belt in the entire universe is Steve
I,
McBriarty.
I guess so. I guess so. And white belt is a bit of a meme really, like at
Yes.
this point. But yeah, like for example, like I live with an incredibly good black belt of Liam Khan,
Mhm.
and you know I've been his literally the only training partner this entire time. So like the level of improvement that I've seen in my own game is insane. And like I feel there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be coming back to jiu-jitsu who are, you know, like they're gonna have loads of rust. They'd not be able to train for a year and stuff like this. I feel as if I've got a lot of value I can add to those type of people in terms of teaching. And that's not me being like, oh, I'm a coach or whatever like that. It's like, I've developed a vast amount of knowledge over in the time of literally training every single day with that guy for a year. Like it's would be so ignorant and so much of a missed opportunity if I was not to have done that. And I have. So I believe I can add value in that regard too. And just as well, just segueing off there into photography, like I just I just really can't wait to get back out there and take photos, man. As I was saying earlier in the episode, it's like there's so many events that I'd love to take photos for. And as well, like certain events like Polaris, for example, where there's just such a great atmosphere, and Pantheon as well. Like there's just man, like I genuinely can't wait just to be on the side of a mat for one of those and just snapping away, getting some photos. that's going to be phenomenal. Like, just there's so I feel as if, like, you know, where I've made gains in a lot of areas like jiu-jitsu and, you know, stuff like this, there's so much room for growth in terms of, like, you know, the other areas, like, you know. And I feel as if that's one of the great things that I've missed is photography.
Look, I mean, I think that the goals that you've mentioned are brilliant ones, really, and they sort of speak to who you are as a person, but also where you are in your life, right? You're at that point in life where, a lot faster than many people are, I think, where you're ready to give back already, whether it be teaching grappling or teaching skateboarding or whatever. And you know, don't get me wrong, I think it's fair to say that your technical excellence is far superior or far further along the line in skateboarding than it is in jiu-jitsu. You're still, you know, well under the way of your own journey in jiu-jitsu, but that's not to say that there isn't room for passing that knowledge down. And as you say, and I'm utterly jealous of your position, you you live with one of the UK's best black belts, right? Right. So you know, if you, as you say, if you hadn't have taken the opportunity to essentially get free one-to-ones every day for a year, I think I would have murdered you.
Yeah, absolutely. This, like, the thing is, it would be so ignorant. It would be so ignorant
Yeah.
to not take up that opportunity.
Yeah, and the fact that you have means I am never going to roll with you again. One, and two, it just makes me really excited, to be honest. I think that progression is never linear, and we know this. But I also think that it happens in small bursts, and it feels like, from having known you for a number of years now, it feels like there's been a big jump when a lot of people haven't made jumps. And that's nothing, there's no detriment to other people, right? I don't feel like I've made any jumps in this lockdown period, but it feels like there is a Steve 2.0 that's been birthed by the lockdown. And that, for me specifically, is fucking exciting.
Cheers, man. Like, and I agree. I think, like, you know, I feel very fortunate in the regard of being able to have had the time skateboarding for that, like 20 years in skateboarding is insane.
Long ass
Like,
time.
do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm a firm believer of, like, you know, coming back to what we were saying earlier in the podcast, of, like, you know, when you recognize you're coming to the end of these sorts of periods in your life, almost as if you've got, like, for example, I've got a skateboarding life which is coming to an end, if you will, but it allows you to rebirth that and have new opportunities elsewhere, you know. Like, you know, you can really begin to see where you can give value in these areas. And like I was saying, it's not always a case of where you have to just step away from something. That's not the case at all. You can still be involved in a capacity, and that's why I believe it would be really fun if I could get myself into a situation where I could, you know, coach or teach skateboarding in some capacity. Like, I've already seen and I've heard a lot of people ask me for skateboarding tips and videos and stuff like that, and how to skate and stuff. Like, in lockdown, loads of people have started doing it, and, like, you know, I feel as if I could help a lot of people in that area, and I can only see, pardon me, I can see the same thing happening in jiu-jitsu, and I would absolutely love for that to come to fruition.
100%. Before I let you go, I know there was a question that you wanted me to ask, so I'm going to ask it. Specifically, who are the competitors that you are excited to shoot and watch over the next little while?
Well, here we are. So, first and foremost, I just want to give a shout out as well to my favorite tag team, as I've mentioned previously. You know, the old Nathan and the old Jack.
Oh,
like,
God.
I am hyped. Like, I can't even begin to understate that. I am so hyped to see them getting after it, and to shoot them would be a dream. Like that would be so cool. But of course, I really want to shoot some photos of yourself. I really want to shoot some photos of Liam. I've got so many people out there who I'm excited to take photos for. And then of course, all the athletes who are going to be traveling to the UK for events, especially like Polaris, Pantheon, and whatnot. That is going to be incredible. I'm so excited for that. So that's who I'd say who are on the list for the old photography, I must say.
So there is going to be some very interesting developments with Jack Sear of the next year, I think. I can't say too much, but I think we're going to see a lot more of Jack over the next year, and I'd like to think that he is going to go on to do some really good things, some really, really good things. And Nathan the same. Nathan is one of the most underrated and hidden gems that the UK has. He has issues with performing, right, when it comes to the competition day. However, for anyone that has either been at 10th Planet London or at Grand Union, you will understand the technical capability of Nathan, both from a rolling perspective and from a coaching perspective. And people forget how young this dude is, right? He has a massive future in the sport, and one that I'm really excited to watch. But yeah, I think this is kind of my closing point on what you said, is that two points. The first one is there is a desperation for events, for competition, for all of these sorts of things in the UK. And I think that especially European guys want to get over here, want to compete. People want to put shows on. The US guys have obviously been opened up for a little bit longer now. So their desperation for these things is probably a little bit less. However, I think that there are great matches to put on, great tournaments to do. And people like yourself and other combat sports photographers that are prolific in the game are the fabric that hold these things together, right? Because as we spoke about at the very start of the podcast about, Instagramming your entire night and saying it's amazing, these grapplers can't do that, right? Because they're busy performing. However, there are people like you on the side of the stage that can capture the amazing moments that occur, the magic between a grappler and a crowd, a magic of a walkout, a win. Like, I don't know if you've seen, but Kennedy Maciel fought Josh Cisneros, if I could say his name correctly, this weekend. Have you seen that match?
I believe so.
Okay, so for the people that haven't, essentially, I think they're 6 or 7 minute matches and it's sub only, right? Or should be. And Kennedy spent essentially 7 minutes of the match getting murdered. He spent 3 minutes in the triangle. He spent a lot of time getting Kimura'd into oblivion and armbarred into oblivion. And he managed to turn it around and put the dude to sleep with 8 seconds left on the clock. Like, some of the photos that you're going to get, the photographers that were present, some of the photos that they're going to get are going to be timeless to both of those guys.
Absolutely.
And I think that I specifically, I really appreciate you just as a person, but your output into the community of grappling, into the community of MMA, into the community of skateboarding, I think is invaluable. And I think when we're all old and, shit at jiu-jitsu, it's going to be incredible to look back and see how you documented the mural of the UK scene growing.
Absolutely. Like, that's one of the things that, I really aspire to capture, is those types of moments, those key moments, which are, going to be historic in that sense. And like, whether that it's big or small, like, they all hold value, which, only increases in time.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a work of art. Do you know what I mean? It's an art form, and yeah, these things are appreciating assets. But look, I will halt us there. I've taken over 2 hours of your time. is there any specific shout outs or any specific, people you want to shout out before we close?
There's too many. There's too many that like I worry that I would mess it up. So I'm gonna say just much love to everyone that's listened, and yeah, thank you for having me, Harry.
Mate, as always, you're one of my closest friends, so you're welcome whenever you want. It's always a pleasure to speak to you, whether it be offline or online. And I can't wait to visit Scramble and not roll with you. It's going to be wonderful.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'm excited. Man. I'm excited. Might just give you a hug instead, and we'll leave it at that. Yeah.
All right, as long as you don't get double unders, because I'll be fucked.
Oh, there it is. Much love, man.
All right, mate. Take care of yourself. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.